Now at 5 and streaming on crossroadstoday.com, more details from the shooting Wednesday night in Bloomington. We'll go over the names of the suspects and their charges. And we continue following that deadly mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine. More than 16 people killed and several others hurt, the latest in the manhunt for the gunman. Plus, the Israeli war has reached its 20th day. Targeted raids have now taken place, the rising death toll up next.
We are tracking some thunder showers getting closer and closer to our area. Now here is Victoria, and you can see right about here rolling up to Cuero and all the way up to the Gonzales area is the particularly heavy thunderstorm. You can see it right about there. This activity will be with us through the night and into tomorrow morning, but then things look better as we get to the weekend, and I'll have all that coming up in a moment.
Plus, we take a closer look into Proposition 6 in the November 7th election on 14 constitutional amendments. You're watching 25 News now at 5. Good afternoon and thanks for being with us. I'm Karina Garcia. James Munoz is on assignment. The latest update in that shooting in Bloomington yesterday evening, just before 6:20 p.m., the Victoria County Sheriff's Office were alerted to a fight in a convenience store parking lot in the 100 block of South Shipley in Bloomington. While authorities on the way to the scene, they received another call that someone was shot. One person was hurt in that shooting and was taken to a hospital in Victoria. 3 arrests were made in that shooting, and authorities arrested 18-year-old Samuel Isaac in connection to that shooting. He faces a charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and 17-year-old Zachary Gonzalez was also arrested in connection to the shooting. He faces a similar charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Also, 21-year-old James Norman was also arrested but was released by a judge. He has since been bonded out of jail. He still faces the deadly conduct charge. Authorities are still investigating this shooting. In this Texas constitutional amendment election, Proposition 6 would create the Texas Water Fund to help in financing water projects in the state. The Texas Water Fund would be run to the Texas Water Development Board, and Proposition 6 would create a special fund in the state treasury outside the General Revenue Fund. The money from this fund would be used to fix aging and failing pipelines and build out new water supply. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th. And here is your viewer poll this afternoon. You can scan that QR code on your screen to vote. The question is, how do you plan to vote for Proposition 6? Are you for it or are you against it? We want to hear from you. Come to crossroadstoday.com/vote to take part. And of course, we're going to have an update on 25 News Now at 6. And Texans are voting on 14 constitutional amendments. Early voting runs through next Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and next Thursday and Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can vote at the Dr. Patty Dotson Public Health Center, 2805 North Navarro, Classroom A. And now let's take a look at your forecast with Chief Meteorologist Mac Perez.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. We still have shower activity around our area. The line, however, is clearing out of the hill country. It'll be rolling toward the crossroads tonight. We already have storms to the north of us, and by tomorrow, a lot of this will start to clear. So we'll be talking about your weekend coming up in just a moment.
Mac, thank you. We now turn to Maine, where another deadly mass shooting has occurred. At least 18 dead and 13 others wounded. The suspected gunman remains on the loose, and authorities are warning the public to stay indoors as he's considered armed and dangerous.
Officials confirming at least 18 people have been killed and 13 others wounded after a heavily armed gunman opened fire at 2 locations in Lewiston, Maine. Authorities releasing these surveillance images showing the suspect, 40-year-old Robert Card, as he entered a local bowling alley that was hosting a youth night for a kids bowling league.
Out of nowhere, he just came in and there was a loud pop. Thought it was a balloon. I had my back turned to the door.
Police say Card then allegedly traveled about 4 miles to a bar and restaurant where police allege he shot several more victims. And since then, he's been on the run. Card's white Subaru, pictured here, was found at a boat launch in Lisbon. Officials say he owns a boat as well as a motorcycle.
He should be considered armed and dangerous. We believe this is someone that should not be approached.
Hundreds of federal, state, and local law enforcement agents joining forces to try and track him down. A shelter-in-place advisory is in effect for several communities communities. Many schools and businesses in the state closed as the manhunt continues.
I do ask the public to continue to be mindful of their own personal safety.
Over the summer, CARD was deployed to a military training center in upstate New York to support training for West Point cadets. A defense official telling ABC News that back in July, he was behaving erratically and out of concern for his safety was taken to a mental health facility for evaluation. He spent 2 weeks there and allegedly threatened to shoot up a National Guard facility in Maine.
One source telling me this is the worst case scenario involving a highly skilled gunman who is irrational. Card is a firearms expert and Army reservist with a history of mental illness.
Flags at the White House and across Maine have been lowered to half staff in memory of the victims. Now, according to the Gun Violence Archive, this is the 565th mass shooting here in the U.S. this year alone, and it is the deadliest since the massacre in Uvalde. Rena Roy, ABC News, Lewiston, Maine.
Now, the U.S. has had 318 deaths due to mass shootings in the past year alone, and 67,000 plus people were hurt in these mass shootings over the past year. America has had more mass shootings than days in this year so far. These numbers are from the Gun Violence Archive. The U.S. has had at least 565 mass shootings so far this year alone. This averages out to almost 2 mass shootings a day. Mass shootings are defined as an incident in which 4 or more victims are shot or killed. The U.S. has had 645 mass shootings in 2022 and 690 in 2021. At this time last year, America had 559 mass shootings. And police are asking people to stay home and lock all their doors in several cities in Maine. This, of course, after the gunman killed multiple people and left several more hurt in multiple locations of that mass shooting. The father of one of the victims expressed frustration at how authorities are handling the situation.
At what point did you learn that your son didn't make it?
What time you got?
I have 2:15.
2.5 hours ago. Over 14 hours, my whole family sat on pins waiting for these knuckleheads to decide that they can reach into my son's pocket and pull out his ID. And then they decided to tell us that he had been shot and killed at the scene.
A shelter-in-place order was also issued for Libsyn, which is about 8 miles away. Authorities found what they described as a vehicle of interest there. For the latest special report on the mass shooting, come to crossroadstoday.com. Wednesday, the Senate approved an amendment that would make it easier for veterans with mental illness to bypass background checks when buying weapons. It's a sign of how there is little regard for gun control legislation in Congress at a moment despite public outcry. 3 Democrats joined Republicans in supporting the amendment, as well as 2 independent senators who caucus with Democrats. Israeli military troops and tanks briefly entered northern Gaza overnight, hitting several militant targets. Israeli airstrikes have devastated parts of the Gaza Strip, destroying neighborhoods. Gaza hospitals are struggling to treat masses of wounded with little resources. The Hamas-run health ministry said on Thursday that more than 7,000 Palestinians were killed. U.S. and other leaders fear fighting could spill over and become a wider regional conflict. The war is now on its 20th day. Back in Texas, the Texas House in the early morning hours of Thursday approved 3 bills aimed at beefing up border security. The Texas Tribune reports House Bill 4 would create a new state crime for illegally entering Texas from Mexico, authorize state police to arrest violators, and allow officers to return migrants to a port of entry and order them to return to Mexico. A first-time offender could be convicted of a misdemeanor. The penalty would then jump to a felony punishable by up to 2 years in prison for repeated offenders. House Bill 6 would let the state spend $1.5 billion to fund Governor Greg Abbott's efforts to build border barriers along different parts of the border. The bill says the state would pay 5 contractors to build an additional 50 miles of border barriers and maintain the currently planned 40 miles of barrier. If the bill is approved, the state would have about 100 miles of border barrier by September of 2026. Next Tuesday, a global hunger strike is taking place to hold a subsidiary of Formosa Plastics Group accountable for their lack of response to an environmental disaster. In 2016, the plant responsible released large amounts of toxic chemicals into the sea, devastating the marine life and the lives of over 179,000 Vietnamese people, many of whom still haven't received compensation despite Formosa paying $500 million to the Vietnamese government. The hunger strike will take place after a press conference in front of Formosa Plastics' Point Comfort facility. And gas prices keep falling in Victoria. AAA Texas reports the average gas price per gallon in Victoria is $2.90. That's 8 cents per gallon less than a week ago and 41 cents cheaper per gallon than 1 month ago. The average gas price in Texas is $3.02 per gallon. AAA reports lower gas demand along with declining oil prices has contributed to pushing the pump prices down. An East Texas high school principal who injured a student while paddling her will not be criminally prosecuted. You can read more on this story by the Texas Tribune on our crossroadstoday.com website. And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click that notification bell. For now, stay with us. Multiple people dead in rural North Carolina under investigation. Up next on 25 News Now at 5, why this particular investigation is puzzling for authorities. Also ahead, heavy rains lead to water rescues this morning in parts of North Texas. Are dead after a shooting late Wednesday inside a home in rural North Carolina. The Sansom County Sheriff's Office calls the scene unusual. Investigators are unsure how 4 men and 1 woman are related. They're of different races and ethnicities, within ages ranging from their 30s to 80s. It's also unclear how the man who called 911 knows them. 27 people were killed in Hurricane Otis after it devastated Acapulco on Thursday. Survivors of the storm search for friends, families, and necessities. They hope that aid arrives quickly in the wake of the storm. Now, resentment in impoverished neighborhoods is growing as residents worry that the Mexican government will give attention into repairing tourism infrastructure rather than help those in need. In the U.S., every 40 seconds, someone has a stroke, but health experts say many people can avoid having one by having a healthy lifestyle.
It's a leading cause of death and serious long-term disability in the U.S.
Stroke is actually much more common than we think.
Every 3 minutes and 14 seconds, someone dies of stroke in the U.S., according to the CDC. But addressing 9 risk factors can help prevent most strokes. It starts with keeping blood pressure in check. A healthy lifestyle and limiting salt intake to less than 2 grams per day can help. Diabetes is another risk factor. Control it with glucose-lowering medications, says Dr. Sidoni Abrikji, a neurologist at Cleveland Clinic.
What we like to target in diabetic patients is a hemoglobin A1C of around 7%.
Next, Abrikji says to control high cholesterol by taking statins or other medications. Fourth, be aware of atrial fibrillation, a risk factor for stroke that causes an irregular heartbeat.
They have to be on a strong blood thinner known as anticoagulation.
Getting sleep apnea treated is also key. Those suffering from the condition stop breathing for short periods during the night.
The main ways to prevent sleep apnea are weight loss, but also using a CPAP machine if it's moderate to severe.
Cut out smoking and limit alcohol intake to 1 drink or less a day. Both are major risk factors for stroke, as is what you eat. Abrigshi recommends a diet rich in fruits and veggies, nuts, and lean protein. And finally, get your heart rate up at least 4 times a week for 20 to 30 minutes a day. For Health Minute, I'm Andy Gaither.
A brief tornado touched this morning in San Antonio. The weak tornado was spotted on a meteorologist's camera just after 8 a.m. on the northern side of the city. The National Weather Service confirmed the brief tornado touched down and had a survey team to access and damage the determined strength of the twister. No one was reported hurt, but there was some downed trees and damage to vehicles. The San Antonio Zoo confirmed that all animals were safe and secure, and no damage by the storm passed through the zoo. Now, some residents in Dallas Metroplex woke up to flooding conditions Thursday. Heavy rains led to streets filled with water in parts of the city. Several flights in and out of Dallas-Fort Worth Airport were either delayed or canceled. A slow-moving system has dumped as much as 6 inches of rain overnight and into the day. And heavy rains led to high water rescues across North Texas this morning. In McKinney, fire crews pulled 3 people and a dog from a flooded creek. This was one of the 4 separate calls from water rescues that fire crews were able to respond to overnight and into the morning. In other places, White Rock Creek in Dallas spilled over its banks, straining vehicles and sending flood waters very close to the front doors of many homes. Parts of North Texas were hit by more than 5 inches of rain, and more is expected over the next few days.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is all that stormy weather that we've been talking about. This is actually the remnants of what used to be Norma. Remember that? Well, all that heavy stuff is right along I-35. Dallas is already cleared up. The tornado activity, it was very brief. They were very small. Was in and around San Antonio. They got about 4 different sites that they're going to go track tomorrow to see if it was rotational or just high winds. But that volatility is getting close to our area. I don't expect it to be here, but we will get thunder showers tonight, and we'll talk more about that coming up after this. Well, good evening, everybody. Stormy weather in central parts of Texas. So far, we've been spared from anything significant, but we have had shower activity roll around the area. Now, within the last couple of hours, the heavy stuff is somewhere between Nordheim and Cuero. You can see it right about there. All that stuff moving northbound into that area of instability that caused the big stuff this morning. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning when the funnel clouds were noticed somewhere between San Antonio and Lockhart. Dallas, as you can see, has begun to clear out, and so things are looking better. This is the footage that came in from San Antonio. You can see the funnel cloud right about there. It only lasted maybe 30 seconds, but it was enough to get everybody a scare. And this is only one spot. There was actually 4 locations that are going to be checked out tomorrow morning to see what kind of damage occurred. One of them was actually at Fort Sam Houston, one of the Army bases there got affected by some sort of damage. So at this hour of the evening, there you see where we are. There's a city. There's the real heavy stuff. And we're looking at Cuero here, going up to Yoakum, and actually you can go all the way up to Hallettsville where they're getting some fairly significant rain. So in the city, we've had some, but nothing significant. There's what we're talking about. You can see San Antonio, and 1, 2 inches, maybe 3 in some spots, which has been significant. Up in Dallas, they had about 5 inches of rain. So when you see this red stuff, that's probably flash flooding kind of situation. Problem is, this thing is moving very slowly. So it is raining over the same area over and over. Tonight, we're looking at temperatures only down into the mid 70s, and tomorrow will still be in the 80s. We're going to be warm all the way through Sunday. And then, boy, things are going to get very interesting by the time we get to Monday. Let's take a look at it. This is the area, you can see we're just to the south of it, but tonight that there's a possibility of some heavy thunderstorms. Okay, so there's a marginal opportunity for severe weather in this area. So basically, Seguin all the way up to maybe College Station. We're south of it, but that activity will be decreasing as it gets to the coast by tomorrow morning. So let's take a look at the big stuff. Here's the big picture. Here's storm number 1. That is front number 1. Those are the remnants of Norma and maybe a little bit of Otis. All that's moving away, and we're now looking at the big frontal system that will be pushing through here. Looks like it'll be here late Sunday night, closer to midnight. So you'll really feel it by the time we get to Monday. That's when it's going to start getting colder. Here's choppy bays because of the strong winds. And so just keep that in mind if you think you're going out there. It may be a little stormy in the morning. I don't think fishing tomorrow is a great idea. 78 up to 84 in Port Lavaca. Strong southerly winds, additional shower activity, especially in the morning hour. By evening, which will be Friday evening, I think a lot of this will settle down. 76 to 83 tomorrow in Cuero. Still more stormy weather, especially in the early part of the day. And here is the forecast. By Saturday, we do get a little bit of sun. Not bad on Sunday. Midnight, big frontal system comes in. Windy conditions and much colder as temperatures drop about 30 degrees for Monday and, of course, for Halloween as well. That's your 7-day forecast, reminding everybody we do have a QR code. Want you to scan that and put Crossroads Today on your phone. Here's Karina.
Thank you, Matt. Coming up next on 25 News Now at 5, we'll take a look at your stocks, plus mortgage rates continue their upward trend. Taking a look at your stocks, the Dow down 251 points, the S&P 500 down 49 points, and the Nasdaq down 225 points. Oil down $2.18, closing at $83.21 a barrel. Mortgage rates continue their upward trend last week amid stronger than expected economic activity. A new report shows the 30-year fixed rate mortgage averaged 7.79% in the week ending October 26. This marks the 7th week in a row mortgage rates have continued to climb toward 8%. In 2023, rates rose to full percentage points. A chief economist says purchases have slowed to a virtual standstill, with affordability remaining a hurdle amid high rates and low inventory. The U.S. economy grew at a rate of 4.9% in the third quarter. The rapid rate of expansion comes despite interest rates standing at their highest level in 22 years. Robust spending fueled growth in the third quarter, a sign of the economy's remarkable resilience despite tougher borrowing costs and persistently high inflation. However, it's not expected to continue. The economy faces several obstacles, including soaring bond yields and the resumption of student loan repayments. Stay with us. We'll take one last look at your forecast. Plus, Central Texas is home to its youngest entrepreneur. Plus, here's a look at world news tonight right after 25 News Now at 5.
Coming up, we're on the scene tonight. This horrific mass shooting, at least 18 dead. The urgent manhunt for the suspected gunman, an Army reservist, where his car has been found, and authorities surrounding a location right now. Also, the major news from Israel and the intruder in RFK Jr.'s home. Next.
A 3-year-old in Central Texas might be the youngest business owner yet. Merritt Gomez runs the M&M Paletas cart, which started when his parents noticed how every time they went to the store, he wanted a toy. 30% of his earnings go towards savings, 25% to pay back business supplies, 10% for tithing, and 35% for spending on toys. He's also learning about goal setting. It's these lessons his parents hope he'll carry with him forever. Well, I mean, that's a good start.
It's a great start,
he's a 3-year-old kid.
Yeah, some people would say, oh, that's cruel punishment. No, that's life.
No, look at him with his little M&M Paletas cart.
And he's got
around.
his priorities all, see, he's got all his priorities laid out there.
He has a pie chart. That's how you know it's official.
Some to the church, some to me, some to others, and he shares it quite well. So it's a great lesson in sales.
Absolutely.
He's going to grow up to be a, probably governor or something like that. Well, folks, we do have additional showers occurring around the area. Now, here in Victoria, we're fairly lucky. So far, the heavy stuff is out there between, Nixon all the way over to Gonzales and Hallettsville. So it's raining in the north. We're going to be looking at thunder showers overnight and then decreasing tomorrow, Friday. The weekend's looking fairly nice. Okay. I think we'll see a little sun. But it's Monday morning when you're going to be reaching into the closet looking for your winter coat. Because we want to call it a blue norther, but I don't know. There's not going to be any ice with it. But we're looking at a 30-degree drop in temperatures for next week.
I see a 50 on there, and it's looking pretty promising.
And windy as well, so bundle up.
Alrighty, well, thank you, Mac. And thank you for being with us. We hope to see you back here tonight for 25 News Now at 6. World News Tonight with David Muir is up next.